What's going on, y'all? We got episode 33, Let's Be Real podcast coming at you on Sunday. Obviously, big sports Sunday, man. We got golf, we got the Masters going on right now. We got some NFL news, obviously NBA last day of the season, so we got playoff implications on the line. So we're going to talk about a lot of it. But look, and as always, look, I got me a little something. Today we just a little prosecco, nothing crazy. It's the prosecco from Kirkland. It's a Sunday. It's a Sunday early afternoon. So I got this. Gonna watch some games. Maybe switch to the red wine later tonight. But look, man, we gonna get to it. And so first, man, just because we're not going to talk about it, but obviously the Masters going on right now, man. Rory in position to win it, so let's hope he holds on and able to get his first Masters, get that Grand Slam. That's what I'm rooting for. So we'll see what happens with that. But we're gonna start off. I know we got, like I said, we got a ton of NBA stuff, man. We got between Denver firing Booth and Malone. We got the Lakers, Golden State. They're both making pushes here at the end. Ja Morant and his ridiculousness. We're going to go over some NBA awards at the end, but we're going to start off with the NFL, man. And really, we're really just focused on three players and one team. And so it's about the Steelers, man. And so obviously, we're going to start off talking about the biggest kind of question that's been going on for the last 3 weeks. Why is Aaron Rodgers not signed yet? And so, look, at this point, I had already kind of mentioned in a previous podcast my thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers thing. I think it's a kind of tactic that he's using at this point. One, keeps him in the news cycle, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers loves being on the sports talk shows. I'm, just front and center. Aaron Rodgers likes the attention. And he's getting it, because everyone's waiting on him. He's the last quarterback to be signed right now. And so the only kind of weird thing is like, if he doesn't go there, there's no one else that is going to sign him. So in like waiting, it's inevitable. He's either going to sign with the Steelers or retire. I don't think he's retiring, because if he didn't want to play football, it wouldn't have gone through all this anyways. So he's going to sign with the Steelers. I think now it's just a matter of one, staying in the news, and then, like I said before, also just I think it's a kind of tactic as far as, kind of flex into the Steelers, like, hey, be careful who you draft with your 21st pick, your first round pick, right? Because Rodgers isn't going to want a quarterback who, if Rodgers isn't playing well, that can come in and, kind of they can replace him, right? Because he's not going to have a multi-year deal. It's not going to be a ton of money, or it's not going to be like not worth it to cut him. And so you got to think, and we're going to talk about it here in a second, but if Shedeur does end up falling to that 21st spot, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't want that. And so I think it's also just a leverage play by him for them not to draft a quarterback and not to draft somebody like a Shedeur in the first round. I'm sure if they drafted a quarterback, in the fifth, sixth round, it's whatever. It's a late pick. No one's going to be clamoring for it. But if you draft Shedeur with the 21st pick and Rodgers isn't playing well, the team's not doing well, that fan base, that city, that team, they're going to be looking to bring Shedeur in. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't want that. And so I know I said we're going to talk about Shedeur here also, but before we touch on that, we also going to talk about TJ Watt. Because TJ Watt, in kind of a, athlete kind of thing that everyone's doing now, is he took to Instagram, posted, a deuces, just, the nice little cryptic Instagram post. Who knows what it really means? None of us. Only TJ probably, and probably his agent. So my guess is this is just a ploy for an extension, to be paid basically as either the highest or near the highest paid non-quarterback because that market just keeps getting reset. And look, he's more than justified being paid that over his last few seasons. If I'm the Steelers, though, look, I've talked about it on a few podcasts now that I think the Steelers, what they need to do is do just a total reset. And so I think, yeah, I mean, obviously I had the idea of moving Tomlin, getting rid of Tomlin. I think he's good enough where you're not going to have a terrible, terrible season, but you're never going to be drafting high enough to get real difference makers, but you're never going to be good enough to win the Super Bowl because you can't draft the different makers at the top of the draft, and specifically a quarterback. But what I would say here is with TJ, man, this gives you an opening where, look, Mike Tomlin, defensive coach. We look at guys like, a McVay or a Shanahan or a Reed, where you see these guys on these offensive coaches where, and Reed's a good example, right? This last year and the year before where they won the Super Bowl is really the best example, right? Where you look at the offensive talent that they had on that side of the ball, and it wasn't great. Like probably the worst they've had in Mahomes' era. But because Reed can game plan and scheme guys open, they're able to move a lot of draft capital into the defensive side of the ball. Similarly, man, if you're Mike Tomlin, if you're the Steelers, getting rid of TJ Watt gives you an opportunity to get some draft capital, move it to the offensive side of the ball. And look, I know they went out and they got DK. We're going to see how that and the Pickens thing works. But if you're if you have a head coach on their side of the ball, they need to be a difference maker. And right now, the Steelers, I mean, they've been the highest paid defense over the last few years. And so if you're a defensive coach, you should be able to do more with less. In the same way, do you see the Reeds, the Shanahans, the McVays do more with less on the offensive side? And so I think TJ Watt with the kind of cryptic Instagram post and all that gave you an opening where you can move him, get some draft capital, and then really try to bolster that offensive side of the ball. In case Shedeur does fall to you, now you can really give him the best opportunity. And so with that, let's talk about Shedeur, right? Obviously, if you've been paying attention to any of the mock drafts, anything like that, Shedeur has been falling like crazy. It seems pretty obvious Tennessee's going to go with Cam Ward. And then Giants, they went out, they signed 2 veteran quarterbacks, so I doubt they would be drafting Shedeur with 2 veteran quarterbacks there. You have 1 there, it makes sense. 2 there doesn't really. Browns just went out, signed Kenny Pickett, and they have just signed Joe Flacco. And so doesn't really make sense to bring him there either. Looks like them and the Giants will both go defense. And then the only real kind of team that may need a quarterback but before Pittsburgh is going to be the Saints, but they just locked in Derek Carr for more guaranteed money. And so it does look like he's going to fall to the Steelers. What I'm interested to see and what I think could actually be an interesting move. I don't think it'll happen, but there is a team who's drafting before the Steelers who has a quarterback who's coming up on a contract year who they haven't committed to yet, although they've said they will. They said they want to, but quarterback who's had success, shown he can have success in the system he's in, and is a little limited as far as talent wise. And that team is the Niners. And so again, I don't think this will happen. I have no reason to think this will happen at all. But we've seen Shanahan have a guy similar to Purdy in Jimmy Garoppolo where it's like, looks great, but we're skeptical of the numbers he's putting up and how far he's getting them. And we've seen him, Shanahan, and that team move up to draft a Trey Lance, right? And so would they maybe kind of do the same thing again, try it out again? You're not gonna need to move up. You can actually move. You can probably move Purdy, get another pick either this year or next year. Obviously, he's coming up, so somebody's gonna have to pay him. But I think he's gonna have a somewhat of a market. Somebody will convince themselves that he could be the quarterback of their future based on what they saw in San Francisco. And so I think, if you can move Purdy, Shedeur is a more talented Brock Purdy. And I think you get him in there with Shanahan, with the weapons that they can bring in. Obviously, you still have CMC there. We'll see what that looks like. Trent Williams, obviously, he's getting older, so who knows what that'll look like. But you still got Ayuk there coming off the injury. Um, Pearsall's there, who had some flashes towards the end of last year. You've got some talent. You can bring in more talent over the next couple of years. I think Shedeur in that system, obviously he's not the kind of raw athlete that Trey Lance was coming in, but much more polished of a thrower and still gives you more athleticism than a Brock Purdy. And so I think if I'm the Niners, if I'm in that front office, that's something I seriously look at. And this is just me, again, no reporting on it. I haven't seen anybody say anything about it, but that would be a team that I think could really benefit from where they're at in the draft. And the only other team really that it seems like would pick him up being behind them in the Steelers. So I think that could be an interesting one. I would really like it for Shedeur. And if I mean, obviously, I at this point I don't think the Niners are really contending anymore. But if I was worried about the Niners' future outlook, or as an Eagles fan, right? Obviously, they're in the NFC. Shedeur on that team scares me more for the future than Brock Purdy at $55-60 million, which to me, with him not being signed yet with this extension, tells me that they're not fully sold on the idea. I know they came out and said they want him there. I don't. To me, it sounds like they're not fully sold on Brock Purdy at that number. And if you're not sold on him at that number, you can either one, let it ride out this season, see what he does. My guess is you have a season similar to this year, just because I don't think they don't have the talent that they used to have on the defensive side or the offensive side. And if he has another year like this year, then what? You do you give him a Sam Darnold kind of deal, a Baker Mayfield kind of deal? Maybe he's a. I mean, you can franchise him, but again, it's just. I think if you're not sold on him, I think looking at Shedeur as a possible replacement would be the best possible option for you. But man, look, with that, obviously touch a little football, but we are going NBA for the rest of the episode. And look, we are starting off Denver, Michael Malone, and Booth, both out, both fired. Um, Reasoning around it, obviously, we're getting more and more each day. But one of the big reasons we heard was just it was a toxic environment. Malone and Booth weren't really on speaking terms anymore. And obviously, that's just kind of bled down into the team. They didn't like the way that Malone had, like the coaching difference between Joker, Jamal, and Russ and the rest of the team. To me, that's tough because if you pay attention to the NBA, if you look at the Nuggets and kind of just how they're constructed, right? There's only a couple guys that when you talk about there were some players in the locker room that had issues with how the coaching was being handled, right? There's only a couple guys that could really be about, right? Because I'm guessing it's not the Strother and the kind of young rotation guys, right? It's clearly not Joker, Jamal, or Russ. So you're looking at it's Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown. Like, it's not DeAndre Jordan. He's I don't think he really cares how he's getting coached because he's barely getting coached when he's making, he's getting his 5 minutes a game. So there's really three guys that they're talking about. I don't think Aaron Gordon's like that. Christian Brown is still kind of young. To me, this is a Michael Porter Jr. issue. Like it's the only thing that makes sense. And so to me, I mean, just that the way it's gotten out, um, I think this is setting up for. Look, we always see when a GM comes in trying to put their stamp on a team. I think what you're going to see is probably a Michael Porter Jr. trade this summer. And I think that team you're going to need to look for is going to be Phoenix. Phoenix is obviously looking to blow it up. They're not going to get rid of Booker. I think if you're Denver, obviously you would love KD. My fear is that to get off Michael Porter Jr. and his contract, you're going to have to get Bradley Beal. So if you're Denver, worst case scenario, I think it to me that screams in just a worse way the Dame trade to Milwaukee, like in just the worst possible version of it. And so we'll see what they do. I do think Michael Porter Jr. is probably going to be moved just because it seems like there is some friction there with him would be my guess, but we'll see what comes from that. And then lastly, I mean, the last reason that's kind of bubbled to the surface here lately is Russell Westbrook's minutes. And look, I know. You look at Westbrook, a couple games where missed layups, turnovers, fouling somebody on the three, quite literally loses you a few games. Now his minutes are in question as far as the coach wanting to give him too many minutes. And I know, guys, it's LeBron's fault. It's LeBron's fault. He's not making Westbrook better, right? Oh, Denver. No. Okay, so I'm sure it's not Jokic's fault, right? Because that narrative doesn't fit the same. Look, I told Nuggets fans when they first signed Russ. Look, and Nuggets fans were real loud when they got Russ talking about, there's the one, I know y'all know who I'm talking about on Twitter, the Nuggets girl talking about, I'm good with Russ. He's never played with a Jokic. And now your coach and your GM are fired, and he's right at the center of it. And so for all you Russ apologists, and look, I love Russell Westbrook. I've loved him for years. I thought when he was in OKC, I rooted for him. I liked Russ. I still like Russ. He's not the player he was. I equated him to an Allen Iverson, right? Like he's a guy who, if you have a team of just D plus C minus players and him, he'll get you to the playoffs. He'll get you 40, 45 wins and he'll get you to the playoffs. You'll be an 8 seed. You'll be bouncing the first round. He can elevate a team that is not good, but he doesn't play a style conducive to winning on great teams. And it's what you've seen in the last couple of years, right? Like he goes to the Lakers. Granted, Darvin Ham there, like there's a lot of issues there. The fit wasn't great, but brings it down. The big knock on him when he was with KD and James Harden in OKC, it was he was kind of holding them back there. It was the Clippers, or Houston. We saw them get game planned out of a series in the bubble against the Lakers, who went and signed him. Great front office job there. But again, it's just he doesn't play a style conducive to winning basketball. And it's fine. Like there's players like that. We saw Allen Iverson. When Allen Iverson went to like Denver, wasn't really the best fit. They get Chauncey, much better fit. Chauncey's not near the player AI is. Same thing, man, is when you look at Russ, it's just great for elevating a bad team, also great for bringing down a great team. And so, look, it's something that I didn't like Denver signing them in the first place. I know you talk about it, but it also really just shined a light on why I think, look, I don't agree. I think firing Mike Malone a week before the playoffs or a week before the regular season ends is idiotic. Like, I mean, we have no historical precedent for a team firing a coach this late in the season and them going on a playoff run or winning a championship. And look, for what it is, it's been a down year for you guys. Nuggets are still a 4 seed. So it's not like they were this terrible team all year. And so you still have Jokic, who best player in the league, can still go win you playoff games, can win you a playoff series. Do I think he'll win multiple with this team around him? No. And that kind of goes back to, I think Booth being out is fine. As a GM, not much is going on at this point of the year anyways. And look, for whether it was his fault or not, look, you have guys who fit really great next to your players, and like guys like Bruce Brown, KCP, guys where, you let them walk, you bring in Russ on a budget deal, you bring in young players who you think, might be able to replace them. And whether it's you being cheap, whether it's, the owners being cheap, saying, you can't go over this, whatever it is, Booth deserved to be out. Mike Malone, maybe he deserves to be out too. I think you at least give him the playoff run. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense. To me, that's throwing the season away. That's saying to me, if you're the owner and you're firing the coach and the GM, firing the coach is basically saying, hey, we're throwing this season away. And so, look, it's crazy because it comes at you fast. Look, we saw it with Milwaukee after they won their championship. And Giannis kind of came into that, hey, he's the best player in the league. They're going to go on some runs here, and haven't gotten back. Now you look less than 2 years later, you go from Denver, wins the championship, Lakers daddy, and going into that next season as the overwhelming favorite to win. And then having people, basically like, and look, I was one of them. I thought the Nuggets last year, I was like, how do they lose? Like, beating Jokic with that team around him in a 7-game series, I didn't see it happening. Maybe the Celtics, I thought, maybe would have done it, but I thought they were going to win another championship. And you had Denver fans talking about this is a dynasty, like we're going to keep on going. And look, in the NBA, it comes at you quick. You go from being on the verge of what you thought and what a lot of people thought of a possible dynasty start, who can beat them, to, like I said, less than 2 years later, you're blowing up your front office and your head coach, and like they're out now. And so I just think that we see it a lot in sports in general, but especially in the NBA, we're real quick to kind of position ourselves of, oh, we see them win one championship, they're definitely going to be back. And we've seen it with Milwaukee. Denver's kind of on their way to that same kind of walk down the same path as Milwaukee went, of looking down and it's like, oh, it's been 5-6 years and we haven't seen you in the finals. And look, again, when Giannis won, it was not unanimous, but it was wide consensus, I would say, that Giannis was the best player in the league. That's gone. That's been gone for a couple of years now. And look, you got some young guys, and look, Jokic is incredible. Jokic is absolutely incredible. But if you look up in 2 or 3 years from now, it's been 5-6 years since you've been to the finals, and you're having these great regular seasons, but you're not winning. I know Nuggets fans and Jokic fans want to say he's the greatest center of all time. And look, from a skill perspective and what he does on the basketball court, probably the best center ever at that. But it is, when you're talking about ranking these guys all time, accolades do come into it and championships do become a part of it. It's not all of it, but it becomes a part of it. And Jokic, who right now you could maybe see him breaking into that top 10 all time, top 12 all time territory. 2-3 years from now, you don't have a finals. You're probably looking at third best center, fourth best center, probably 15 to 20, top 15 to 20 all time. And so it goes, life in the NBA, like I said, it comes at you fast and things can change quickly. And so with that, man, look, I think as far as Jokic's future is concerned, right? I mean, because of the implications, like I just said, if he's not in the finals, if he's not making deep playoff runs, again, I don't think Jokic is one of those players. I don't think he really cares about where he ends up ranked or his legacy or anything like that. I think he just likes playing basketball and wants to go ride his horses in the offseason, right? But we've seen it with Giannis where it's like he's gotten to a point where it's like you guys need to start making some moves or, maybe I won't be here forever. And we never saw, he was never a player we thought would do that. Jokic, again, there's a lot of parallels between Jokic and Giannis with this. And so what his future looks like in Denver, we'll have to see. I just know it's going to be hard to make any moves when you have Jokic, Jamal, and Michael Porter Jr. making max money. So maybe they are able to get off Michael Porter Jr. and, start to build up some really, really good role players again. We'll have to see. But again, I think we could be coming, and maybe we do see Jokic maybe start pushing for them to make some moves. Again, I don't think he's really like that, but we've seen players who weren't like that before. And so all in all, what does this look like for them in the playoffs, right? Obviously, they're coming in 4 seed, I believe. They've locked up. And look, I would say you fired your coach, you fire your coach especially a week before the season ends. Yeah, I'm not going to kill you for losing the first round or even losing in the second round. Like, I think your team kind of threw the white flag and mailed it in. So I would say you're good. But Jokic comes out, and when asked about the coach and everything, he said, hey, the beast is most dangerous when it's vulnerable, and the owner woke up a beast. So right now, with your and look, I get the whole I'm an athlete, like I'm going to go out to win thing. But when you put that out there, it's the first thing I thought of, it reminded me of was that first year of LeBron in LA when he got hurt. I think it was the groin, came back early and said, I'm activating playoff mode. And then was clearly still hampered, and they didn't. Obviously, I think that's the year they missed the playoffs. It's reminiscent of that to me, where the expectations were off you because you fire your coach. It's what it is. Like, you kind of have a free pass. Jamal Murray's hampered with a hamstring. If you lost in the first round, you didn't do well, you don't have a deep playoff run, it's like, all right, understandable. Expectations are off you because of those things. You just brought expectations back. And now, obviously, it's different. The LeBron thing is different because LeBron is just held to a astronomically higher standard than anybody in basketball history for a plethora of reasons that involve players that no longer play. So Jokic isn't going to get, obviously, all that hate and things like that. But it is, again, it's bringing expectations back on you. So when you say that, all I can do as a fan and as somebody who watches the games and talks about the game some is believe you. Like, I got to believe you. You're most dangerous right now, and you've won a championship. And so, look, I think they're still one of the last teams I'd want to play in the West if I was in the playoffs. I would probably say, with Malone out, I'd be a little more open to playing them. But look, Jokic is still the best player in the league. That team still has a lot of chemistry, and they can still do damage. And like I said earlier, Jokic can definitely go out and win a series. And so for that, do I think they could still compete for a championship? Yeah. Would I give them more than a 5% chance to win it? Probably not. So, again, I think they're dangerous. I think they can definitely spoil some people. If they're in the 4, that means shoot, they might play OKC. Could I see them if they get through first round, maybe beating OKC, getting to the Western Conference Finals? Absolutely. I mean, OKC's young, so and Denver has got the best player and they've got experience. So again, it's tough. I think they fell on a good side of the bracket for them. I like the way the bracket has fallen so far. We'll see what happens later today. But yeah, I mean, I think their ceiling is the Western Conference Finals. And again, I, it'd be hard for me to see them getting further than that. But again, we'll have to see who they end up playing. Next, man, we're going to go over to the Rockets. So 2 seed in the West. Look, they were my sleeper pick coming into the year. I had Jalen Green as my most improved player coming into the year. I nailed both those. But with them being at the 2 seed, I know, a lot of people, and I wouldn't say, I feel like it's kind of split as far as, okay, where are they at? Are they contenders? What's their ceiling? And look, do I think they're contenders? Absolutely not. I think they are as much contenders as we looked at the Grizzlies a few years ago that were the 1 seed. They're contenders like that. No one thought they were going to win. I don't think anybody really thinks this team can win. I think in the NBA we see it consistently that you take steps. It's very almost like a linear process in the NBA. Like you have this season that the Rockets are having. You get bounced in the playoffs probably earlier than you should. Then you come back, and here in the next few years, that's when you're competing. You maybe add another piece. Maybe they're in the Kevin Durant business, but add another piece, and that's when you become real contenders. I think right now they're too young. And as much as I love Jalen Green, I don't think he has to be the guy in the playoffs. And I don't think he's a guy, at least not yet, that you can, when Şengün's having a bad game or, Van Vliet's not shooting well. I don't think he's a guy where you can say, hey, I need you to go take over, and he can go take over a game against a Nuggets or an OKC or a Lakers who have in OKC's in OKC series, like they have the defenders, they have a guy like Shea who can match you. In the Denver and the Lakers, with those guys, it's with a plethora of experience and who have been there and guys who have done it. I just don't think he's there. I don't know if he will get there. I think he's got the talent to, but we'll see. I just don't think he's there yet. And so I don't think they're true contenders. With where they're at in the bracket, I think second round is the ceiling for them, because even if you win the first round, which is not going to be easy depending on how that falls for them, but I mean, because they can get the Clippers, Golden State, Minnesota. You can play any of those 3 teams at this point, all of which I think could definitely beat them. And if you somehow get through that, you either got the Lakers or one of those other teams that I just mentioned in those 3. And so I definitely couldn't see him getting through 2 of those series. I think if you're the Rockets this year, you have to look at it as, if we win a playoff series, that's a successful season for us, especially because of who they're going to be playing. And so I think with the Rockets, obviously that's kind of where they're at. Don't think they're real contenders. Second round ceiling, but look, they're going to be a tough out for whoever does end up knocking them out, and whoever ends up matching up with them. They're going to be a tough series, and they're going to be a tough out. Man, so next, look, we're going to move right on to one of the guys I just mentioned from that Grizzlies team, Ja Morant, because ever since that, year where they were first place in the West and looked like, oh, they were going to be on a trajectory of competing for championships. Ever since then, it has just been a spiral out of control, mostly for John Morant. And so, look, man, I mean, obviously we all saw the gun gesture with against Golden State. Buddy Hield obviously kind of instigated that, but does the gun gesture, and I know all you saw on Twitter after he did it was, oh, how come Luca and how come all these guys who were throwing up the 3-point gun and all this, how come they're not? Why aren't they getting fined? What guys? Let's be serious here. If it's not even just in the NBA. This is in life. If you have had an issue with something, um, let's let's say if you had an issue with alcohol, right? Say you were an alcoholic, and to the point where you went to a work event and got absolutely obliterated and you know knocked over the CEO. Now you'd probably be fired. But let's say you didn't get fired. Let's say they go, hey man, you got to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever. You got to do something. You got to do something. And you do that. And then you come back, and the next time they see you, you're out at a bar and you're having a drink. Now, it may just be one drink, but the optics of it's going to be a lot different. If I'm sitting there next to you as a coworker and I have a drink and then you have a drink, optically, they're going to look at me saying, Brandon's having a drink. They're going to look at you and be like, oh, he might be on his way to another problem. That's life. Life, what you do in the past has an impact on how we view you moving forward. Now, whether that's fair or not, it's what it is. And so, yeah, the guy who got suspended for guns and then showed up on an Instagram Live twice with guns and then had a laser pointer that, going at another team after they lost it through their windows, and that other team thought it was a gun, and that was John Morant, and all those were John Morant. Yeah, when you have an issues and you have a history of gun problems that have resulted in suspensions and fines, yeah, when you do the gun, when you celebrating like that, it's a little different than, Luca, LeBron, Trey Young, name your player. Now, if Gilbert Arenas goes and does it, probably a different story. He's going to probably fall more so in line with the John Morant issue. But so we have that. So he does that, gets the fine. Cool. Next time we see him out, obviously he's I got to remember because it looked like a grenade. But Ja let us know. Ja let us know, said, even though he did this and this, covered the ears, although it appears to be a grenade, no. Putting his words in his mouth, pulling out, throwing his words into the crowd, and then he's not listening to nothing, right? To me, this is just, you know what, and let's finish this out because you have that, nothing gets done. Then the next game, I believe he hit a 3, and then he's running down the court like this. Now it wasn't no trigger, but like this. Now I'm sure what he's gonna say is no. That's me carrying the weight of my responsibilities down the court. Look, because to me now, when you have that whole grenade thing, like when you have, oh no, this is actually what it was, that means you planned this all out. To me, that means you're spending your time thinking, how can I kind of thread the needle of oh, no, it's not really what you think, when it's exactly what we think. Like, that's what you're spending your time doing. To me, that is a sign. And look, it's, do you want to know why Memphis went from a 1 seed, people thinking they could be contenders over the next few years, to where they're at now is no one really views them as a contender and they're probably going to sneak into the playoffs and get bumped in the first round? It's immaturity at your best player. It's the reason why your coach was fired, who's viewed as a pretty good coach. When you have a team that, and look, it's not immaturity in a way of like they're young guys. Like, and good, look, Ja's young. He is a younger guy, but still, like, when you're led by a team where they're more, what it seems like they're more interested in is finding a way to thread the needle between a weapons arsenal that they can show on the court and how they can explain that away as it's not, than winning games. That's why Memphis has gone from a team where that we thought had a lot of promise. Look, I've been saying for years, and I was big. I said Josh should have been the first pick, and I'm big on he, over the last few years up until the gun stuff, really was, oh no, like, it's not even close that Memphis got the best player in that draft, and the Pelicans made a mistake at 1. Now it's, I think, truthfully, what it's getting to the point of, and Zion, say what you want about him, like being fat, being this, being that, like not being this player that we thought he was going to be, in not playing, and or just playing sparingly great, and John Morant's immaturity and lack of just awareness, the gap between that conversation has closed. And Zion could have not played at all. If Zion didn't play at all in these last 3 years, that gap would have closed. Because you can't be the best player on my team and be completely, I can't game plan when I can't rely on a player, whether I'm going to have him or not, because he might do something on the court that gets him suspended for who knows how long. Like, I can't do that. You can't be the best player on a team and be serious about winning, and that's what I have to worry about more than injuries, more than anything else. And so I really, look, like I said, I've been on Ja since he was in college, was following him in college, loved watching him, think he plays an amazing, just fun style of basketball to watch. Thought he had a chance of, that the last month or so, that face of the league conversation had picked up. Thought at one point he was a guy where it's like, oh, he might sneak into that. And now it's just, that's all done. And it's sad, because I'm just hoping that it doesn't lead to something more. Because look, if you followed this at all, if you followed Ja at all, you know that where he's from and how he grew up is not what he portrays now. And all it takes is coming across the one dude who checks you on something. And so hopefully that never becomes a thing. But even if that never becomes a thing, I think he's still on his way to being a massive disappointment as far as what he could have been. And so, look, man, we're going to move on. That's my Ja stuff. Call me old for that take, whatever. That's what it is. We're going to move to the Lakers, though. We're going to move to the Lakers. And look, busy, crazy last week for them. Obviously, playing OKC twice. First game, rout them. Second game, up by 1. And unfortunately for every single NBA fan and the Lakers, JT, or the referee, decided that he was going to be the star of the second OKC game and essentially robbed us, the NBA, everybody, of what seemed to be like it may have been the best game of the year. A 1-point game in the fourth with arguably the two best teams in the West. And I don't think it's arguable. But yeah, Lakers have just walked them down. I think that game, the Lakers probably end up winning after walking them down like that. But who knows? We'll never know because obviously Luka gets ejected for yelling something at a fan. Now, I got a couple things on that because one, I think JTR, if what Jared Vanderbilt said happened earlier in the game is true, in that when Luka got his first technical, arguing not for Luka to get a call, but because Jared Vanderbilt got fouled. Luka arguing with the ref saying that he got fouled, which he clearly did. The ref teching up Luka and then telling Jared Vanderbilt, I will talk to anybody on the team other than Luka. That demonstrates a clear bias. Now, to me, that signals you should not be refereeing any playoff games. That should be an absolute mark on your grading for the end of the year. And you are absolutely excluded from playoff games. Next, if you're the referee, and again, Luka looks and yells something at a guy who's a Thunder fan who always sits right there, who always antagonizes the other team's best player, and who has a history with Luka. If you're a referee, you should be aware of all those things. And I know what you guys can say. Oh, it's not their job. Blah blah blah. It is. If you're refereeing in the NBA, that means you are the best of it. In the same way NBA players are the top 1% of basketball players, NBA referees are the top 1% of referees. It is your job to know those things. And it is also your job to really think about, am I going to throw out one of the best players, if not the best player on the court, in a 1-point game, in a game that means something? And look, I'm going to equate it to a game that was right around the same time in Golden State and the Rockets when Draymond Green is going back and forth with the ref. The ref's telling him to stop. Draymond saying, call it, call it, call it. Hits Şengün. The referee calls a tech. And then Draymond Green, to the ref's face, this far from the ref's face, is clapping in his face. Now that, I don't think any of us would have blamed the ref or said it was bad if he gave Draymond a second tech there and threw him out. But referee knows, hey, and that was directed to the ref. This one with Luka, like, the referee kind of just turns after he hears Luka saying something and assumes it's to him. One, you can't assume that. For a second tech, you can't throw a guy out assuming something. Also, I'm also a big proponent, unless like it is absolutely egregious what the player does, I'm not a fan of throwing out any star player for with a second technical unless it's egregious. Like I said, the Draymond Green thing, great example where that is probably as far as you can take something without getting thrown out, and that's with a long leash. And so if you're JT or the referee in that situation, you can't give a second technical, especially based on an assumption, based on something you think is aimed at you. You do need to know the circumstances, the situation, have awareness of who's in the crowd, who Luke has been talking with for the last 10 games, and that you have to know that. And so again, I think we were robbed of what looked like to be probably the best game of the year. And so, and to further double it down, the NBA rescinded the second technical, basically telling the referee he was wrong in the first place. So that's my thoughts on that. But yeah, again, be better if you're a referee. Like, yes, NBA players yell, they argue, they cry, whatever. Luka does a lot of it. Okay, it's part of the job. It's part of the job. Don't throw a guy out of a meaningful game that's a 1 point game. So, anyways, moving on, man. You then have the Lakers go into Dallas. Luka's game back in Dallas. And man, look, obviously the tribute video has Luka in tears before tip off. Tips off. And Luka, not a great start from the field. So you understandable thinking like, oh man. Because I'm thinking my thoughts were is if when he came in was okay, this is the same team. He's going to visit the team that trash talked him on the way out, traded him away when he thought he was going to be there forever, said that he was out of shape, said that he was, an alcoholic, said that he smoked too much, said that they couldn't win with him after he brought him to finals. I was like, Luka's going to come and tear this team up. And then they do the tribute video that has him in tears. So, look, shout out to Dallas for doing that. Like, great on the Mavericks for doing that. But then you see him kind of off to the slow start. And I'm like, oh, they might have got him. And then he went scorched earth on him. And if you're a Mavericks fan, again, look, you already know all those Maverick fans are already upset about the trade initially. You had them bringing the coffins to the arena. But to then sit there and see him go for 45 on you, and the guy you traded for, the guy who your GM said gives us a better chance to win now, gives him 13. You get 13 points from him. And so, again, just when you look back at it, right, and look back at Nico and the job he did here as far as trading away Luka, trashing him on the way out, trading away Grimes, who has turned into like, my man's been going crazy. You up the ticket prices on him. And then to top it all off, Luka comes back in with the guy you traded for healthy. And Luka is hands down the best player on the court by a mile. And by a mile from the guy you traded for in AD. And look, AD defensively, great. But it also points to all those people who were like, oh, LeBron was holding AD back. LeBron was holding AD back. Point them to this game. Because this is what AD is. He's great, great, great defensively. And offensively, you never know what you're going to get. And there's no LeBron holding him back here. It's his show. And he gave him 13 points. And so, look, I think if Nico somehow was going to avoid being fired already, the fact that he outlasted Booth is crazy, but I think at this point, after Luka did that, that has to be the nail in the coffin of Nico being fired. And so, look, after all that, let's look at, obviously, we have Lakers in the 3 seed, and Golden State and the Clippers are actually going to be playing here in just a minute. But they can only play those two teams. Who's the better matchup? So for me, if I'm the Lakers, I probably, in round 1, I probably want Golden State. I think Golden State, and I know they beat them last time they played. I just think the Lakers match up so much worse for Golden State. Whereas the Clippers, look, Clippers been on a tear. Kawhi has been back. He has been balling. And I think we've seen what a healthy Kawhi can do in the playoffs. And he's going to get the rest going into the playoffs. I would much rather play the Clippers second, third round when Kawhi is going to have the knee flared up and possibly be out for the series. And I'm not wishing that on him. I'm just saying what historically has happened with Kawhi as the further the playoffs go recently. And so I also think with the Clippers, Zubac is, while the Lakers have been pretty good against bigs, even while they're smaller, Zubac is one of the guys who has actually just feasted on the Lakers and plays really well against them. And so I don't like that matchup. Um, if you do end up playing the Clippers, the only kind of bright side is that James Harden is on the team, and like he might have a game, he might have 2 games that are great, but you know he's going to have some clunkers in there. And if that's your second best player and you're relying on him, that's tough. But I just think, again, Golden State, look, you get the same thing. We just saw Steph have a 3-point game. Also, with Steph's 3-point game, you had to start the double-digit streak. Shout out to LeBron at 1,290. And y'all want to put Steph Curry in the same conversation. But anyways, but no, look, we've seen from Golden State that they can have some bad games. Like they just lost to the Spurs, who were playing nobody. And so while Golden State can come out and beat anybody, they're also equally as likely, to me, to come out and just have a what in the world was that game, and just clunker of a game and lose it. And so I think when you mix that with the fact that the Lakers, I don't think Golden State has the personnel to stop the Lakers. I would if I'm the Lakers, I'd rather play Golden State. And so talking about Golden State, man, look, how much do we trust them in the playoffs? Look, again, it's tough to say because it's a lot's gonna depend on their matchup. If they win, they got the Lakers. I don't trust them against the Lakers. And if they lose, they go into the play-in at the 7 seed, I believe, which means they get the Rockets first round. Which, look, against the Rockets, I think that's a pick'em series, but I think that's where it ends. I think they could beat the Rockets, but then you're playing the Lakers or whoever, maybe the Clippers. So, and I don't think they beat either of those teams. So maybe they do have a magical run in them left. I just can't see that team stringing together 16 wins, 17 if they get in the play-in. And so for that, to me, I just can't trust Golden State. But we'll see, man. It's gonna be like we got, like I said, we're gonna have to see how this bracket falls. We'll talk about that more next week once everything is locked in and we know where everyone's at. We know the matchups. We know who's hurt, who's healthy, and so we'll see what that happens. But look, last thing I want to do, man, just go over my predictions for the awards. MVP, man, y'all know where I'm at with that. Shea, I think Shea's had the best season, leading that team that far as the solo star. I think to me he should be a lock, but obviously we'll see what happens. But I think he's pretty much got that award locked up. Defensive Player of the Year. Look, I know Draymond has been getting a ton of traction on this for whatever reason. I think that went out the window when he got hunted out against the Spurs and basically lost the game. They lost the game while he was getting hunted down by whoever had the ball, Castle usually. So I think he's out on this one. I think this at this point now has got to be a 2-man race. I haven't seen the odds on it. I like, probably a little earlier, I would have said Dyson Daniel. But I think Mobley, with just how that team is playing and how he's been playing defensively, I think Evan Mobley probably takes this one. Coach of the Year, man, this is actually, I think, a really tough one because if you want to go with Thunder coach Dagnall, if you want to go with Cleveland's coach, you want to go with, Houston's coach, the Lakers coach, you want to go with JJ, man, like the season he's put together after what was, what he was given and what we had seen from the previous coaching staff. But for me, this one, I think I like Ime for it. I think if the Thunder would have won 70 games, I would have gone with Dagnall. But I think with just the total transformation of that Rockets team to such a good defensive team and the jump they've taken to go up to the 2 seed, I like Ime for this. I think he should probably win the Coach of the Year for that one. Most improved player, like I said, Jalen Green. I think he's got that. He should get that. I know there's been some talk about, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Kyle Anderson was saying that, number one or top picks shouldn't be able to be eligible for most improved because they're just doing what they're supposed to do. I'm not buying that. Look, Jalen Green is the guy for Houston. And so with them, the season they've had, the season he's had, he's my pick for most improved. And look, I threw this one in here because this is one, and this is a player that should have had one already. But I'm interested to see how they do it this year, because this year I think he's got the best case he's ever had. And I thought he should have easily won this either last year or 2 years ago. But that's clutch player of the year, LeBron. Fourth quarters, he has been dominant all year, and it's not close. So I would say he gets the clutch player. Again, I think he should have had the one over Steph a few years ago when Steph's numbers weren't even great in the fourth, but he somehow he hit like a couple game winners or something towards the end of the year and snuck away with it. Anyways, I'm going with LeBron in that one. And then we're going to finish it off, man, all NBA first team. And we'll probably go into a little bit more of the awards, and as we go on, probably do all three NBA teams. But I think there's 4 locks here. I think that's pretty unanimous with Shea, Tatum, Giannis, and Jokic. I think those 4 guys are locked in. The last spot, man, I've been going back and forth. There's 4 guys I think would deserve it, but we can only pick one. And so the 4 guys, I think you got Anthony Edwards, Donovan Mitchell, Steph, and LeBron. I cut that down. Look, I think Donovan and Steph have had great years. Steph, there was months in the year where he wasn't great. Donovan also didn't have, he kind of went on a little skid towards the end. His numbers just don't pop out to you. I think that's a team. So I think Donovan's a lock for second team, but I think Cleveland's success is not based around Donovan. It's based around everybody on that team. So I'd knock those 2 out. Ant and LeBron, between those 2, look, I'd want nothing more than give it to 40-year-old LeBron. I think he has a solid case for it, but I'm going with Anthony Edwards. Look, Anthony Edwards, and they're going to end up being like the 7 or 8 seed, 6 seed, something like that, whatever it is. But I think what he's done with this team, when I thought coming into the year with the Julius Randle trade, they were going to be dead in the water. And then after the Julius Randle trade, as we saw it kind of playing out throughout the year, Minnesota looked dead in the water. And then he has just kind of gone crazy over these last few months and got them into the playoffs, and they look like a dangerous team. Again, I don't think they're a team that could do a ton, but could they spoil one other playoff team season and possibly upset somebody? I think so. And that has nothing to do with anybody but Anthony Edwards. And so he would be my 5th spot. So Shea, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Giannis, Jokic. And so that's my 5, man. And look, that's a wrap for us today. Appreciate y'all as always. Look, like, subscribe, click on your notifications to be notified when we drop a new episode. We'll see y'all next week. And then always interact with us on our social media, on our YouTube, and we'll see y'all next week.